Hey there, folks. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I want to do a little housekeeping before we get started. One of the reasons I haven't been doing so many videos, as many as I used to, is frankly, I've been a little self-conscious. My brain isn't as reliable as it once was. It's been a little glitchier. I'm finding myself with increased word finding issues and losing my train of thought more often. And I'm just not as smooth with my speaking as would like to be. So I've been doing a lot more writing, but people have been really encouraging me to do more video. They find that it's much more personable. So I think I found a solution to this, that when I do a video, I just frankly do the best I can. And if there end up being gaps in what I remember to talk about, because notes don't work for me. If I have to switch my focus or transition away from talking to reading notes, I lose my train of thought. I have a hard time getting back into the groove once I've read notes and then start speaking again. In fact, my working memory is so bad that I can look at the notes, think about what I wanted to say, and forget them in the second it takes me to transition back to the camera. So that's one of the beautiful little glitches that I have to work with every day. So it's much better for me to work stream of consciousness like this, and then afterwards, write it all up. So I can write what I discussed in the video and fill in any gaps that come to me after the fact, where I say to myself, oh, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have expanded on that. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to write it up afterwards and hopefully flush it out in more detail so that I can give you a more comprehensive view of what it is that I'm going to discuss here. Sound good? Okay. So what I'm going to share with you came up in a group call with my inner circle members. And it started out by talking about mind mapping and planning your schedule and trying to organize all the things that you have to do on a given day. And one of my members reminded me of this technique because she kind of stumbled across it. And she showed a mind map that she had drawn, and she had some arrows on it to show how the bubbles were connected. And what I immediately remembered is one of the problems that people with ADHD and other forms of neurodiversity have as well is time blindness. And that is basically, they lack the experience of time passing. And I have this issue too. It's one of the reasons why we can get lost in hyperfocus, and half an hour, what it feels like half an hour to us, is actually 3 hours or longer, because we don't have the experience of what 5 minutes feels like, or half an hour, or several hours. We kind of live in the perpetual now, which is also one of the reasons why we're impatient, is because this idea of waiting is a foreign concept. We either live in now or not now. This idea of a process or a continuum kind of eludes us. And that is one of the reasons why follow through is very difficult, because follow through requires us to conceive of things as a process. You have the start, you have the finish, but you also have all of these steps in between where you have to see it through. You follow through in order to see through the process it takes you to get from point A to point B. Well, if you only think in terms of now or not now, all or nothing, how on earth do you follow through when you only see 2 points? You don't see the plan, you don't conceive of the plan. And we know how easy it is for people with ADHD to get bored. The novelty can wear off pretty quickly once the shine is dulled, once the newness goes away. And when you have gotten through the initial thrill, which is the first step of the first step, last step, all, nothing, now, not now, once the initial shine is gone, you lose interest, right? It's not new anymore. So it's very easy to drive yourself into the ditch or look for a detour once the first step is over. And because you live in now or not now, it's difficult to experience progress. And research has demonstrated that one of the sources of happiness or dopamine hits is this feeling that we're getting somewhere, which is one of the reasons why video games are so appealing, is you have these concrete measures that you're getting somewhere. The scenes are action packed. You see your character running along, or if you're playing something where you're having Tetris, for example, you see the blocks dropping and you reposition them and you see the score increasing. There are all these concrete measures that you're making progress, so you know you're getting somewhere. Does that happen in real life? You're working on a project, say for school, where the progress is abstract, meaning you're working on a paper, but there's no one there to tell you, great job, you finished that paragraph. There's no bells and whistles or dings or scores or anything to tell you you're making progress. There's nothing in your head that validates it. You're so used to all of these external factors telling you you're making progress. So there's nothing inherent in the process of going through work, if it's a job that you're doing or school, to tell you, hey, you're getting somewhere. So as far as you haven't gone anywhere. There's just this monotony of doing something that's boring and not shiny. It's the same old stuff, the same old drudgery. And it can feel painful for you because you almost feel like you're just wading in concrete or splashing in water, but you're not swimming. So let me give you another metaphor that comes to mind. You're driving. Now, if you're in corn country like me, yeah, it is pretty much monotonous. It's a bunch of flat land, bunch of fields that no longer have anything in them. But during the summer, it doesn't change much either. It's all pretty much corn. So the point being that when you're driving, you see the scenery change. That is a concrete demonstration of progress. It's passing you, so you know you're moving forward. When there's only abstract measures like, well, I've completed a paragraph and I know instinctively that's getting me closer to the end. I can conceive of it, but I can't see it. Well, we know a lot of ADHD folks are kinesthetic, meaning they need to feel it. It needs to be some kind of physical, visceral experience, or I don't feel like I'm making progress. Well, let's create that experience. If you can't feel time move, you need something physically to give you the sense that motion is happening. And it can be something very simple. Now let's look back to the example that the member of my inner circle gave, which was drawing an arrow. One thing I've noticed that can be very, very beneficial of reminding people, giving them a cue that progress is actually happening, is to use symbols of movement. Now, it can be something as simple as an arrow. Somebody can draw, if they like animals, you can draw an animal running, you can draw wind, whatever appeals to you that shows motion. You can put a race car on there. If you are using something like a mind map, you have all of these graphics at your disposal. If you like doing something by hand, which is the pencil, keep it simple, stick with arrows, but show the direction things are moving. So if you have a calendar, like I love using Google Calendar, and you can print it out once you've put in your schedule for the day. And it has an inherent flow in it because it goes by the times. And you have 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. And if it helps you, you can draw arrows next to each appointment, or you can draw an arrow for the entire day that shows you, hey, I'm moving towards the end at which I can give myself a little reward. For some of you, you like a nice relaxing glass of wine at the end of the day, or a cold beer, or however it is you finish off the day. But knowing that you are actually moving instead of just seeing, and here's where the all or nothing mind can get you in trouble. You just see this day with everything there is to do. And this everything feels heavy and daunting. because you have all this stuff. Ever catch yourself talking like that? Where you talk about your day as though it's one item. That's one of the things that makes life seem so overwhelming, is you don't chunk it down. But when you look at your calendar and you see it visually broken down into individual experiences, and then you draw arrows next to each one saying, I moved through this experience. Now I'm moving to the next experience and I'm moving through it. And the arrows remind you you're moving through, you're making progress, you're actually moving. Things like that remind you just how in motion you are, just how much follow through is happening, as opposed to surviving, getting through it all, which is what you may be thinking is happening. So you can draw arrows, like I said, you could use race cars, whatever it is. If you love horseback riding, and I know people that do, use a horse. Use a picture of horses. That will get you excited because you love horses. You can imagine yourself riding through your schedule. Now, I might use Star Wars spaceships or something because I love that kind of stuff and I geek out on it. Maybe I use a TIE fighter and I imagine myself, flying through my schedule. Things like that can make it really quirky. But the key is that you are able to experience some sense that you are in motion in some way, that you are making progress, even though it may be more abstract. The symbolism makes it much more concrete and easier to comprehend for you. And it's easier to stay in the game if you make the endpoints a little bit shorter in duration. Because again, we're impatient. And the longer you have to wait, the harder it can be to hang in there. So when it comes to things like appointments, half an hour long, you measure those by an arrow, and you may think to yourself, well, it didn't take me that long at all. That feels like a win. I bet you I can do that again. So now the next appointment you go and do, it feels the same way. So let's say you've got a big project at work, you got a big project in school, chunk it down so that your win doesn't take you that long to get to. So maybe your first win is the first paragraph of the paper. Your arrow tells you, all right, I got through this process. I followed through. Hallelujah. Stop, get up, move, take a breather. Celebrate it somehow. Then continue. Get through the next experience. Stop, celebrate. But use those symbols to demonstrate to yourself you are in motion. You are getting things done. The more you feel like you're making progress and getting somewhere, the less defeated you will feel. Because the brain that tells you you are only in the moment, that you are stuck and you are not getting anywhere in life, needs to be reminded that, hey, guess what? Let's remember you don't feel time pass. So your brain is being deceptive right now. You need to be reminded that you are actually making progress. And this is one way you can do that. So I want to encourage you to experiment with this a little bit and see if things don't shift for you a little bit perceptually. And get back to me and let me know how it works for you. And feel free to ask questions underneath or make comments. And until we talk again next, thanks for being you.